Mhm. Okay. Hey guys, welcome back to the TrendFX YouTube channel. My name is Josh, aka the Home Fletcher. If you're new to the channel, and what we're going to discuss today is a CPI for tomorrow. Okay, so we have CPI coming out for the the US economy, and we can expect some pretty crazy moves, right? Usually during CPI, this is a time where we get a sort of a confirmation as to what to expect moving forward with interest rates increase where the Fed currently stands, as well as where we could expect the US dollar to head towards. All right. And I just want to dive into it quick. I don't want to take up too much of you guys' time. And we're going to look here at the DXY. Now, overall on the DXY, we have a very bearish, a sort of bearish trend. All right, we've seen this bearishness kicking in pretty heavily on the DXY after this turn point here around September of last year. We saw the DXY gradually declining, right? And as we approach the CPI news, we can see right around this area, we have been sort of in a sort of consolidation, right? And we see that price is gradually continuing that downward movement. Now, moving forward for CPI, we have the CPI numbers to come out being less than expected, less than the previous, right? So the consensus is less than the previous. And if you know about CPI, if we have bad numbers, then usually that is bearish for the dollar. And if we do have a higher number, let's say this comes out as um 298 or something like that, better than the consensus and the previous, then that is usually bullish for the dollar. Now, overall, the US dollar has been very bearish because of the looming fears of recession as well as other inflation and other factors playing into that US dollar weakness. So overall, the dollar has been experiencing this bearishness, this bearish tone, this bearish sentiment, heavily weighing its current movement. The CPI data may give us some movement to the upside for potential continuations back downward, right? Just because the CPI data, if it does come out positive, it doesn't necessarily mean that okay, the trend is going to reverse at this point, that price is going to start moving upwards, we need to start buying the US dollar, anything like that, right? Because we have to look at the overall factors affecting the US dollar weakness, and putting that in perspective, we'll understand why that would be the case, why price wouldn't just immediately start swinging back to the upside or anything like that, right? So we need to be cautious about it, because for CPI, a lot of crazy things could happen. So if you're not already in a trade, you should probably stay out of the trade. And if you are in a trade, I suggest you secure your positions, put your stop losses to break evens, or manage your trade wisely, because during some volatile news event, you could experience slippage if price just wicks up and down into one area. You could experience slippage. You could lose more than you put towards any trade that you are in. So you need to be careful about the risk and the setups that you are taking for CPI. Me, I'm staying out of any new setups until after CPI, just to get a little bit of a clearer picture as to where the markets is heading with that data, right? So if the trades that I'm in, I'm going to stay in it. If I get hit the stop loss or break even, so be it. But I'm not going to add into any new risk for that CPI, because we don't know what the numbers is going to be, right? We don't know what the numbers are going to come out as, right? We could only speculate as to what to expect. However, we don't know with certainty that that is going to be the case. So with that being said, the only other trades that I am currently holding is Euro NZD, a trade that we took within the VIP group. We took this Euro NZD trade, currently in profit around 2%, as well as NZD CAD, right? NZD CAD buy as well. Looking for price to continue that upward movement, especially with the CPI data. Once that does come out, I'm expecting to see more weakness with the US dollar. And as we've seen recently, the US dollar and the Canadian dollar have been moving in tandem with each other. So therefore, I do think that price has room to continue moving up. All right, if we take a look at the technicals, just to give you guys a little clear example as to what I'm seeing here. All right, looking from the daily time frame, we can see that price has been heavily trending up. And we have this sort of pullback right here. Now, this pullback that we are currently seeing, we could say that this is from the highs right around here, right? But we're not going to dismiss this overall bullishness that we have been seeing up until this area, right? So with that being said, I do think that this is just a pullback to continue the trend upwards. And as we've seen recently, as markets opened for the starting of the year, we have seen risk sentiment being pretty much improved, being a risk on sort of market environment, as well as with that US dollar and Canadian weakness, despite the previous numbers that we did get from NFP, right? And the other data points that we did get were pretty positive. We've seen that US dollar weakness continue and that CAD weakness continue as well, right? Because we do have looming fears of recession, inflation could probably still go up, which is what the CPI data would show as well. So all of these things are really things that we are paying attention to, right? So we have the CPI coming out, we have inflation coming out as well. If inflation comes out higher, then that would be good for the US dollar. Generally, it can be good, but with the looming fears of recessions and stuff like that, it would have a negative impact on price. And that is part of market psychology, right? And that is knowing how inflation works with recession as well. So that is something we'll dive into another time, but we're just going over, possibilities of what we could expect, right? Usually for the inflation rate, when we do have this information coming out, if it does come higher than expected, that is usually good for the dollar. And if it comes lower than expected, then that is usually a bad thing, right? And price would move downwards or bearish for the dollar itself. Now, with the fundamental factors that we do have taking place, with either direction, whether price comes, whether this data does come out as higher than expected or lower than expected, I do think we would see a continuation of that bearish dollar movement, right? So I do think that no matter what this comes out as, we'll see a continuation with that bearish dollar. Right, but we'll have to wait and see. We have to wait and see how the market reacts to the news and the numbers that comes out into play. But for thus far, that is what I'm seeing. That is what I'm waiting on, and we're just waiting to see what price does. I would be trading after the news. I'm not going to put on any additional risks or anything like that. I'm going to try to stay away from the charts just to avoid myself from saying, "Oh, okay, this looks like a perfect trade to get into just before the news," right? Because it's at a key area. You could expect the volatility to help move price. No, we're trying to stay out of that, especially since this is the first CPI data point that we would have continuing for the rest of the year. So that is something to keep in mind, right? And overall, manage your risk wisely. Don't try to over risk. The year has now started. It's the second week of the year, right? Second week of January. So there isn't much sense in risking too much or overly putting your risk out there just to, possibly lose it all. So manage your risk wisely and really put that at the main focus of your trading plan and continuing for the rest of the year, either next month and continuing down for the first quarter. It would help you in the long run. All right. There's no sense in rushing it. And we have recession fears playing all over globally, right? In the global economy. So there's a lot of factors that are affecting the current price action data, right? Another thing that we can look at here is the GBP. So the pound has been very range bound. All right. If you take a look here, GBP AD, the pound has been very range bound here. GBP CAD, this was a trade that we took right around here. I did come out around halfway to stop just because it was just dancing around that area and it looked like it was probably coming to the stop loss. But you can see we came almost to the pip and then price started to go down and we even came all the way down here, right? And then this this candle just erased 5 hours of patience that we have been holding this trade, right? So GBP CAD also sort of range bound, right? And it's pretty significant to see that the GBP, the pound itself, is very range bound here on most of the currency pairs. That is not to speak for GBP CHF. We have been seeing the CHF pairs being the main mover for today at the time of this recording. But overall, we have been seeing just this range bound pound, right? So whether the pound goes up or down in any of these currency pairs, it would be good for a continuation movement, right? Because that would be the deciding factor. If we get a wick above and price manages to close above that area of this consolidation slash range, right, we should continue seeing a movement in whatever direction price does decide to go towards, right? Like say we had two trades here, one right here and one right here. This one worked out, came out in like 1% profit, and then there's this one here that just we didn't get into, right? Um, but moving forward, once price does decide on an area to break out of, whether we break out from the highs here, we'll most likely see a continuation with that movement because we have been range bound between these two areas for a very long time now, right? So whether price moves up or down, I'll be looking to take a trade in that direction, going with the overall momentum that we would see, all right? So that's the only other time that I'm looking to actually trade the GBP right now. I'm being very patient with the trades. You can't rush these things to happen. It's just the market doing what it wants, and you have to, have a little patience with it, right? Your time would come where the trade does come to you and it works for your setup, it works in your favor, right? Right now, it's just having the patience, and that is the biggest part that makes a trader a successful trader is that patience, having that knowledge, knowing that price will do what it wants and the market would eventually go in your direction, so to speak, or give you a setup, and you just have to wait for that setup to occur. All right. So yeah, that's it. I'm not trying to take up too much of you guys' time with this. But yeah, just to recap what we are looking at for next week, for tomorrow is that CPI data. We want to see what this does, what it comes out to, and we'll take a look at the reaction from the markets, whether we get a reaction or not, right? For the past couple of days, we had very bullish USD numbers for a variety of different news, right? High impacting news as well. And the numbers has been good. However, the price action did not reflect that. Markets did not reflect that. And we saw a very bearish USD, right? So we'll see what the CPI number does for the US dollar. And we'll see what we have going on continuing forward, right? For the week after, as well as Friday after tomorrow's news event. All right, guys. So thank you for joining in. Thank you for viewing this video. If you liked it, if you found any informational value out of it, then please leave a like and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. As it helps out the channel, helps it get discovered, and the YouTube algorithm, suggesting these videos to anybody out there that needs to join a trading community or understand from the point of perspective as someone who does fundamental trading as well as technicals. And yeah, if you want to get into a community with like-minded traders, you can join the Discord link in the description part of this video as well. And yeah, that's it. That's all I have for you guys now. So thank you for joining in. Peace. See you tomorrow.